Our first speaker is Oluwagbeminiyi, who is the founder and managing director of Talking Drum Communications. So if you can give a virtual round of applause for him. If you know Talking Drum Communications, they do absolutely fantastic work. So thank you so much for joining us. And we also have Phoebe. Phoebe, I hope I'm going to pronounce your surname correctly. Pappoe. Pappoe. I want to say Pappoe. Who is a public Pappoe. Okay, thank you so much. She's a public relations consultant and proactive international PR. And one thing I really love about Phoebe is she's been a mentor on our mentoring program. And I just love how she's very open about sharing her knowledge, sharing, her experiences. And I believe that she will share a lot of valuable things with us this afternoon. So I'm going to get right into the conversation. And Amy, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell us how you started working in the UK comms industry? I know you didn't transition, but I would like to know how you started your journey in the industry.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Shout out the Comms Avenue as well. You guys also do some fantastic work. So in terms of how I started my career in the UK, so I was relatively new in the UK when I started my career. So I've only just moved to the UK from Nigeria not long before I started. And I started right from the bottom. So I started as an intern. For context, I graduated in 2008, and anyone that knows what happened in 2008 knows about the global financial crisis. There were no jobs. So I had to take an unpaid internship. And I think my first job in PR was like a £20 a week job. But the £20 didn't even cover my transport to get to the place of the internship. But it was the only thing I could get at the time. And I started from there, and with hard work and grit and just one step at a time, I'm where I am today. I'm very thankful for it. So yeah, there's so many different things I can talk about in terms of my journey. Start from there, obviously starting as a Nigerian, working on UK focused brands at that time, trying to learn how to operate in the comm space in that context, and kind of going from that journey to where I am today. But yeah, that's probably a story for another time. But that's how I started. But we are where we are today, so it's all good.
Well, thank you. So 2008, I was a student at University of Leeds, and I'm thinking £20 a week. Wouldn't have even gotten me from my apartment to my uni.
It did it exactly. Like I'm thankful. I'm very fortunate. Obviously, I'm very fortunate that my parents were able to subsidize my earnings at the time. And also I was even I had to do like a part-time job. So I'll do like a 9 to 5 at my internship, and I was doing like a 6 to 10 job like at a retail store that I was working in town. So I was literally working around the clock at the time just to get my foot on the ladder in terms of this PR journey. But hey, a few years down the line, I'm where I am today, so it's all good. All's well that ends well, as they say.
Amazing. I love that. Thank you so much. So I'm going to come to you, Phoebe. I know that you transitioned. So how did that transition happen?
Okay, thank you very much. So for me, when I had opportunity to come to the UK to relocate because of my family, my husband was working here, had gotten a job here. So he came here earlier and I had to join him, I think after 6 or 7 months. So previously I was working with UBA Ghana, United Bank for Africa Ghana, as a corporate communications officer. And so one of my colleagues who I think he's very popular on LinkedIn, and most of you know him, Edward Asari, told me that, oh, Phoebe, if you are going, I know someone who has an agency here, and let me just speak to her because I know you are very good at what you do. So when you go, you'll be a good addition to agency. So she spoke to the person even when I didn't know he had done that. And then later he told me that, okay, I've spoken to her and she's happy to have a conversation with you when you come to the UK. So I just went ahead to connect with her on LinkedIn, and then I started engaging with her, commenting on her post and everything. So when I got here and I settled in, Actually, I think I was pregnant at that time, so I had to wait. I didn't even wait because I started working with her some few months after. So when I got here, I just sent her a message and then we had an informal interview. She was like, okay, I like your approach to things. And so we started working on a few projects. And then she was like, yeah, right now I know I can't pay you the full amount of money that you deserve, the full salary that you deserve. So I'm just going to hire you on contract basis. And I told her that I was very fine with that. What I really wanted was the work experience. I want to learn. I want to know how things are done here. And I need that experience to add to my CV. So we had that conversation and then we started working with her till about, I think, 8 months or a year. And then I got an opportunity to work with Proactive International as a PR consultant. So that was how it worked for me. So for me, I would say that for a lot of people, when they want to move into this direction, they should just look at some volunteering opportunities. And then when they come into the system, they need to learn, they need to gather the experience that is expected of them. And then I think they'll get their grounds in the job market here.
Thank you for sharing that, Phoebe. And that's something I hope we'll also go into in detail later on, because some of the challenges that some professionals have expressed to me is this issue of work experience. So they don't have UK-based work experience. And as you said, one of the ways they can get it is by volunteering. And that may mean sometimes unpaid volunteering, but hey, we'll talk more on it. Thank you so much. Eduvie is here. Eduvie, can you hear us? Are you able
Yes,
to?
I can. Hello, everyone. Just having one of those back-to-back days. It's so good to be here. My camera doesn't want to show you my beautiful face, but I'm going to keep trying to fix it as we go along. I will keep trying. So what do you want me to say at this point?
So we're talking about how people have made their transition journey. So we'd like to hear your transition to the UK comms industry.
Oh, well, mine is a very boring story, really, because I joined my organization, my current organization, from Nigeria. And then one day I was just having a chat with one of my colleagues, and she was like, oh, do you know that there's a role open in the global team? I'm like, yeah, okay. And she's like, why don't you put yourself up for that? I think you'll be qualified for it. I was like, yeah, so funny. And that was how the conversation ended. And then a couple of weeks after, we were having a chat, and she was like, why don't you put yourself up for it? And who knows? Nobody knows what they're looking for. It might be a really good opportunity. And I recommend that you put yourself up for it. So I just did, and I forgot about it because I never really planned to move to the UK. I always knew this was my goal. My goal was I was going to come to the UK and study. And then after studying, I would leave the UK with Fone and then come to Nigeria. My Fone was going to give me this assistant manager. I was in the bank then. And so that was the goal. And then all of a sudden, I found out that all those chefing scholarship did not really like me. So I stayed on my lane and I just continued to do my banking, the global graduate route in banking. And then when this opportunity came within BAT and I started there, it slowly became a conversation of why don't you put yourself for a global role? I'm like, we all know they're going to give this thing to their friends and their cousins. And who do I know in the global organization? So, well, let's just do it. Let's not be that I did not try. So at the end of the day, what eventually happened was the organization did call me for an interview and then offered me the role. And I still remember very clearly when the role was given to me, I was really confused. I actually was saying to them, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't declare before. I don't have a work visa. I think that might kind of, change things a little bit. My apologies for not declaring that before. And they were like, that has nothing to do with nothing. Yeah, nothing to do with nothing at all. We're going to sponsor everything. And, for me, it's one of the reasons why I'm really loyal to my organization. I feel that organizations that are global, that have a global footprint, always help if you are looking to move your career journey. So that's something I always encourage anyone who's looking to move.
Thank you so much for sharing. I love how you started with, oh, it's a boring story and it's a very interesting story. Thank you so much for sharing. So, Phoebe, I'm going to come back to you. So, moving from Ghana, shifting to working in the UK, how did you manage the shift and how were you able to settle in? Because I'm sure that you noticed some differences between how you practice PR in Ghana and how it's done in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, that's right. So for me, when I was in Ghana, I started reading a lot about how things are done here. I started reading articles that I'll find online on BBC .com, any article that relates to the UK, and then connecting to some of their blogs like PR Moment and all of that. So I was reading a lot about things in the UK, and then also I started connecting with some journalists as well on LinkedIn, and then some comms professional in the UK as well on LinkedIn. So I just didn't sit there because I knew that, okay, when I come here, I still want to work in the comms industry. I don't want to drift away. I just want to stay focused. So I need to have a plan. I need to have a career plan. What am I going to do when I come here? So I did that. I had a career plan on what I was going to do, where I was going to start from, and then where next I want to go. And also I joined association, I joined CIPR, and also I joined PRC, and then the Global Women in PR. And so these organizations give me um, deeper understanding and deeper knowledge about the industry and how it works and what you need to do, connecting with people. So I always say that networking is very important, and your social capital or your network, they say, is your net worth. So when you know that this is your plan and this is what you want to do, you need to build that strong network system to make sure that your transition becomes very easy and smooth. So yeah, that's what I had to do.
Thank you for that. I like that you were very proactive. So you were reading about the industry, you were following the people, just absorbing all of the information that would have given you some sort of soft landing. And I think I really, really like that point. Thank you. I'm going to Demi now. So you have your agency that you're doing well with, and I want to take you back to maybe not the beginning, but looking at the journey so far. What are some of the challenges that you faced, and what would you have done differently trying to just hack that UK comms industry and be successful in what you're doing?
Yeah, thank you for the question. If you don't mind, I'll split the journey into two. So my journey personally, and also Talking Drum's journey. I'll start with Talking Drum's journey. I think one of the biggest challenges that we faced, or that I faced in the early days, was something very simple as setting up a business bank account. Because we are based in the UK, but we deal almost exclusively, or at least primarily, with organizations operating across the continent. And anyone that's familiar with the banking sector, they know you should understand how risk profiles are established. So a lot of all the high street banks basically said no, they wouldn't open a business bank account for us. Even a lot of the startups that portray themselves as international banks, or banks that service international businesses, they wouldn't come anywhere near us because they saw the markets we're dealing with, or they perceived them as too high risk. So how am I going to run a business if I can't collect money? So so there was like a whole mishmash of different sort of like join kind of banking setup that I had to do in the first year or so of the business running, to make sure that we were, for the work that we're doing. And I'm the kind of person, I like to be very transparent and very sort of honest from the jump. So when I was approaching those banks, a lot of people were saying, oh, just lie and say you're only servicing UK businesses and then collect money and everything from there. But I wanted to be very upfront and transparent. So eventually we found a system that worked, and ultimately, when we got ourselves to a point where we were doing enough business, we could then approach the bank like Revolut, and again with the same clarity and say, hey, this is what we do. And that was like a much more straightforward process. So I think that was like the biggest thing, because in terms of acquiring clients, acquiring and retaining clients, acquiring and retaining talent and stuff like that, I think, yes, it hasn't always been a smooth journey, but largely, I don't think there's been anything out of the ordinary, if I'm going to be completely honest there. But when, again, with the banking thing, I think that's slightly different. On my personal journey, because I think I like to remind my team sometimes, and people I speak to, like I was an employee in the system for a very long time before I became an employer. So my experience, one of the things I like to, so I also speak to a lot of people who are transitioning into the ecosystem, and one of the things I sort of prepare them for is some of the realities of life working in a PR team in the UK. It's a little bit different now. Organizations like Talking Drum exist, where we focus exclusively on Africa. So if you're coming from the continent, your all your experience and know-how is not just going to be relevant. Like that experience, or a lot of our team that have come over from Africa, they're able to carry that experience over. But when I was working on the UK side, you're working in sometimes a lot of environments where if you're new to the UK, a lot of the cultural context may be a bit difficult, because it's a very different culture, it's a very different setup. I like to believe the fundamentals of PR are largely like the same. The fundamentals, there are different nuances across different markets, but fundamentals are the same. But what really makes it tricky to navigate some of the cultural nuances. Also, you're dealing with products and audiences that you may not be familiar with. So in terms of how you practice PR in a context where you don't particularly understand the products, you don't understand the people, as well as something you're native to, I think that presents a challenge. And I think for me, looking back now, I think one thing that I would have done differently, if I could go over, I wouldn't do many things differently in my career, because I believe things happen for a reason, and I'm where I am now because of the journey I've been on. But if I could do something different, I think I would have spent more time looking at or targeting companies. I've worked most of my career agency side, so I would have targeted agencies that were working with brands that I was more familiar with, because I think that would have given me a better chance of talking about of actually practicing. Because for context, I think one of my first jobs, it was talking about cupcakes and makeup and stuff like that. And again, I know nothing about cupcakes. I know a little bit about cupcakes, but I know nothing about makeup. But it was an opportunity that came up, and I just threw myself at it. But I just realized halfway through that I wasn't a good fit. And that's one word people probably hear a lot, like being a good fit. There are lots of like issues around that. I don't know if we're going to get to speaking about some of those issues. But for me, I think it would have been an easier transition. It would have been an easier journey down the road if I just avoided a lot of those places. But again, hindsight gives you a lot of context that as you're maturing through different journeys, you may not necessarily have that context. But yeah, like I said, for me, I'm a kind of person, I like to believe I'm where I am because I'm where I need to be. So in terms of doing things differently, maybe not. I try not to focus on that too much. But going back to the point about the banking thing, I think that's the one that we just have to figure a way out. I'm not going to close down my business just because one bank is not going to open something for me. I knew that if I kept trying, I will find someone that would open a bank account for me, and we got there in the end.
Thank you for sharing. And what I'm hearing is there's also a part of being resilient, and
Absolutely.
if you get the no's, not being discouraged. I was having a conversation with someone a few months ago, and no kidding, she had almost 100 rejections. I was like, first of all, why are you keeping the rejections? Because personally, I can't do it. I'll feel very depressed. But she was keeping it, and eventually she got a job. But I just thought about how demoralizing or, disappointing it will be to get the no after no. But what I'm hearing from everyone is like, there is a way. It might just be tougher for some than others, but it should just keep going and then find what works best for you as you navigate your transition.
Absolutely. And can I just say something before you move on to the next thing? I think on that topic as well, I think just whatever I think you heard with Phoebe and what Eduvie mentioned as well, whatever connections you can leverage to get your foot in the door, please, like, there's no prizes for doing it by yourself. If you can, whatever advantage you have available to you, whatever you know that can introduce you to someone or help you get somewhere, because that is how the vast majority of other people in other agencies get the job. So, and if you think about it from a recruitment perspective, if I see the CV of someone that's recommended by someone I know versus a random CV from someone I've never heard of that probably has a name that looks very different to what I'm used to names looking like, then what is very likely to happen is I will prioritize the people that I know, and then if that doesn't work, then so the point is, if anyone can give you a leg up and get you in the door, please take every advantage of that, because that will just make it as easy as possible for you to get ahead as quickly as possible.
I love that. Thank you so much for adding that. Yeah, we can finally see Eduvie's face because I'm coming to you next. So thank you everyone I've seen some comments in the chat section. If you have questions, please feel free to post it and we'll take it as we go along. But some people sent questions ahead, and I'm going to ask you one that was specifically to Eduvie, which ties into the point that Bin was talking about. And the person said, coming from a third world country, how did you overcome the challenges of fear while you were transitioning into the UK culture and communications? And then the person also wants to know, did you receive any support or any kind of mentoring that has made you the successful professional that you are now in the UK?
Do you know why I'm laughing? I don't know if this person is Nigerian, but if you've met an average Nigerian, we will never describe ourselves as coming from a third world country. Our shoulder is high, our chest is up. Like, I walked into this place like I owned the place with so much confidence. It was hilarious because there was so much I had to learn. But I had no doubt that I could do it when I walked in. I think it is a positive thing to be enthusiastic and to be very confident, and it also has its negatives, and with time you learn how to balance it out. So for me, I was very positive and very confident that I could do it. However, when I started the role, it became very clear to me that I had a lot to learn. And I think for me, the culture shock was one thing, because as I mentioned earlier, I never planned to live in the UK, didn't understand what I was walking into, wasn't ready for it. And then I walked into it. And so what eventually happened for me was I found mentors, I found communities, I joined associations as well. So I am currently the president-elect of the International Association of Business Communicators, and also with the CIPR, so the Chartered Institute of Public Relations. And in those committees, it felt like a safe space where I could have conversations. And it became very clear to me that we were all going through the same things. Everyone was feeling the very same way, stressed out at work, concerned about if stakeholders are being engaged the right way. So it was really lovely to find a community of comms professionals to engage with. I think one thing I also am mindful of, and I tell everyone that asks, is confirmation bias. When you walk into an organization or you walk into a country that's different from yours and things are not going the way you want them to, the first thing people say to you is, oh my God, is it because you're Black? Please surround yourself with a nice balance of people that will tell you the truth and will also guide you, right? So my network is very diverse. I'm not just with Nigerians that love me. I'm also with different nationalities. I make my network very diverse. You want to be told the truth in areas where you need to improve and areas where you can be better at. In terms of the mentorship bit, for me, was with the associations, when I started out with the associations. And one thing I found about the UK is that the community is very giving. There's no one I've popped into their DMs that has denied me. No one, like heads of comms, whoever. I just message them and say, I just would like to have a chat with you. Now, the meeting might be 5 months from now, but it will happen, right? It's about your approach and the way you reach out to people. I know some of the people reach out to me in my DMs. I try to answer as many as I can, being patient also to understand that some people are busy, and when they don't respond to you, it might not be about you. But my recommendation is that you can find people on LinkedIn. Literally just Google head of communications for LinkedIn, for instance, and Google will tell you who that person is. You can invest in premium, which is the LinkedIn extra subscription that gives you access to DM anybody. So I'm on a premium package, which is why I can DM anybody, whether I'm following you or not. And then when you craft your message, make it short and sweet and very clear on what it is that you want out of the person. And you can really make networks with anybody. The community here is very giving. That has been my experience. And I have had people hop on calls to teach me about how they're measuring their comms for free, fellow heads of comms as well. So it's been a really good experience. I always say, if you don't ask, you don't get. What's the worst that can happen? So let's always remember that we can reach out. And I know that everyone has their lived experiences and they're reacting on the back of that. But I'm also this is one thing I don't negotiate, is the way we understand who we are and the way we carry ourselves. That question, if from a third world country, has never occurred to me. When I was sat on my floor, I was the only person of color, and one of my interns that's there working with me became the second person of color, and he said to me, "Do you know that you are the only person of color?" So I asked him, I said, "Did you walk around the whole floor looking for people of color? Walk me through your mind, walk me through your thought process. How did you notice that? I have been here 4 years and it never occurred to me because I never looked, So I know everyone's lived experience is different, but I urge you not to walk in already feeling less of yourself, already feeling like you don't know it. We're all coming from different countries. Everybody's winging it. So walk in there with confidence. And when you don't know it, genuinely reach out to people who do and take on the learnings that come on the back of that.
Wow, you said a lot in such a short time. And what really jumps out to me is the confidence. Confidence. Don't walk around with labels and stereotypes. We're not saying they don't exist, but don't put that, at the forefront. And what she said about the professional associations, I can attest to that. So, Eduvie, if you remember in 2021 that we had a conversation that I was thinking, UK, yes, no. And Eduvie says, you know what, there's the IABC. We have a meeting once a month where non-members can join, just joining. And I joined the meeting and they're all talking and I'm like, okay, this looks interesting. And then they talk about the weather and tea and I'm okay. And then I hang around. I can't remember who it was that asked me a question. I was like, look, I've just finished a master's degree in Spain. I'm just exploring my options. And they were like, talk to Russell. I'm like, who is Russell? It's like, oh, he's the top person in some agency, government organization. Shoot him a LinkedIn message, say from the IABC. I was like, okay. So I'm going to look for Russell on LinkedIn. And I sent Russell. And honestly, he gave me 30 minutes of his time, literally the next week. And we've remained connected after that. That impression, that entire episode really stayed with me because they didn't know me from anywhere. So again, tap into those professional associations. And something that you've said, Eduvie, that I really like is be willing to ask, be willing to put yourself forward. I've come to the point in my career where, look, no is not, it can't kill me if you say no, right? But I will ask you, I would reach out and see what possible doors can open from that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Eduvie. I'm going to come to Phoebe, and it's something that, Gbemi talked about, and is saying good fit. What exactly does that mean? How can I be a good fit? So from your opinion and from your experience, what are the things that professionals need to bear in mind as they make that transition? How can they be a good fit? What is a good fit? So please, if you can share some tips that would help, that would be nice.
Yeah, so as she said, I think Eduvie has said a lot in a short time. So let me just add something quickly to that. Yes, so I think Bemi also mentioned that although the fundamentals are the same, there's that side of cultural difference. So one thing that you need to understand is sometimes a lot of employers here would want people who have the UK experience. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, it will be very good for you to know what you are coming into, know the system, understand how the system works, and be ready to learn, be open to opinions and suggestions. So I think you can start by looking into the industry, reading wide, and probably maybe upskilling yourself as well. So if you have to understand that probably you need to connect to people and then also get to know that what are the gaps here, what are the kind of people that they need, looking at the job opportunities you see out there, and then probably you can take a course in that area, maybe in digital PR or digital marketing, learn something about SEOs, learn something new about media relations, about social media, something that can add value to what you already know and to your skills, your existing skills. But I think if you do that and then you come in, you are able to have a good grounds. And also, one thing I'll add to it is that as you are coming in, just get to know that the ethics of the profession, I'd say it's it's put into practice here a lot. So you need to understand that, okay, maybe probably where you were working, a client could send you an email and then you could ignore it because you feel like you don't have an answer or a response. So you wait till after some days before you get back to the client. But no, their organizations have their policies. Wherever you are going, they have their policies. So you need to know the policy. You need to know the ethics of the profession and understand the profession. And I think Eduvie mentioned a lot about you asking people. One thing I realized that was becoming a problem for me when I came in and I started working at Proactive was when we have meetings and the clients are speaking, most of them speak a lot of slangs and and they speak so fast and you have to pay rapt attention before you understand what they are saying. So I have my colleague here, he's called Carl. Hi, Carl. So sometimes after meetings, I'll go to Carl and ask him, Carl, what did the client say? Does he mean this? Does he mean that? And he's very open to teach me. He's very patient. He will tell me that, okay, this is what the client says. Okay, explain things to me further. And even I remember when I joined, when I was having, after my in induction at Proactive, I went to him, we had a conversation, and then I asked him that what are some of the things he think I need to better myself at? I need to know, I need to learn to make my stay here very smooth. And then he took me through everything and told me that, okay, because we work in a tech B2B agency, PR agency. So you know that it's quite a different environment and you need to understand a lot of tech terminologies to be able to, I mean, operate in that environment. So there was a lot for me to learn and I'm still learning. I'm not done learning. So I went to him, he gave me a lot of insights and it helped a lot. So I think one of the things that we all need to do is to make sure that we reach out to people and ask for help. And I mean, would people are willing to help. So when you reach out to people, you need help, they will come, they'll give you that help that you need.
Thank you very much, Phoebe. And I think that's point again about being able to ask for help and then knowing where the gaps are, knowing the skill gaps that you need to close, knowing the things that you may still need to learn to just make sure that you're giving your best even when you land a role. Amy, I'm going to come back to you and I'm going to ask you this question about people's, Eduvie was talking about lived experiences, and there are people that have faced disadvantages. There are people that have said to me, look, because I'm from an African country, I've faced this unconscious bias, the microaggressions and all. What are your tips and suggestions for people? For example, the person that had applied and received 100 no's, what would you say to such a person, and how do they even navigate some of these barriers? Because for some people, there are barriers or they have faced barriers. How would you advise that they should, position to overcome these barriers?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, and something I think it's a very important conversation to have. I think I'll split into two. I'll split it into before you get the role and when you get the role, because I think the two slightly different experiences, or two slightly different conversations to navigate there. But before I say that, I think one thing that's really important, I think wherever you go into, especially when you're moving into a new country, I think it's very important to spend some time to understand social and cultural cues, because the primary thing that will drive your success wherever you go is your competence, your ability to do the job. I think that's paramount. But it will do me no favors, for example, if I go to Germany and I pretend like I am operating in Nigeria. That's going to put me at a disadvantage, right? I need to understand the cues and the norms of how things operate. How do people speak to each other? I think one of the things that lures us into like a false sense of security sometimes is because we all speak the same English, we think it's the same thing, but the English they speak here and some of the cultural sort of cues that surround the way they speak can be very different from where or how we speak in different parts of the continent. And then you go to sort of like behavioral stuff, like how people behave, because people like to work with people that resemble them or people that they have a lot in common with. So by being who you are, and I think it's also very important to say, it's very important to know who you are. You're not trying to be who you're not, but you have to be careful that the way you express yourself is not unduly sort of alienating you from people. Like if you're trying to be different on purpose, know that you're doing that. But if you are operating in a context that is a bit foreign to what your native context is, it will be useful for you to understand what that native context is. So as you navigate in that context, you are giving yourself the best advantage to be like, okay, if I want to get from A to point B, this is how I need to put myself forward in this kind of context. If I need to have a conversation with my boss or with someone that's reporting into me, this is how I'll have that conversation. If you're having banter, this is how you banter. This is not how you banter. If you're, what do people do for fun? How do people engage? All those kind of things. And you can then make informed decisions. There's no need to do everything everyone does, but in every decision you make informed decisions about where you want to go. And I'll touch quickly on the points I made about before you enter and when you enter. Before you enter, one of the easiest things to do now, is a lot easier now that every PR agency or most organizations have a website and you'll have like a list of the people working in the organization. For me, it's always a good sign. I think there's an advantage that a lot of Nigerians have that I think we take for granted, that we have this level of self-confidence. I think other people across Africa have. It's not unique to Nigerians, by the way. But we have this level of self-confidence that we can walk into any room and be like, I deserve to be here. Right? But of that room, the way they welcome you and the way they engage with you is a completely different conversation. And for me, I feel like so the point I was getting at is, if you're applying for a job, have a look at the website, go on the LinkedIn page, look at the people employed in that company. If the company, for example, I've worked the majority of my career in London. Everyone that's ever been to London knows how multicultural London is. I've worked in a company, like an agency of about 70 odd people. I was the only non-white person in the organization. That tells you something, right? For me, that tells you something. We can afford to ignore it from a Nigerian context where these things don't matter. But if you're operating in the heart of London, you're a communications business, and you only employing one non-white person out of 70, that's red flags, right? Now, I'm not saying everyone should be all black and whatever, but if you look through the organization, also look at the look in terms of, think about your ambition and where you want to get to. If you are someone who has ambitions to get to the top, and you see that an organization has good representation at the top, then you think, okay, if I come here, there's already a pathway set. Now you can go there and want to fight the battle and want to create the path for yourself. Hey, anyone can do what they want to do. But sometimes I feel like it should just be okay for you to go to work and do your work. Like, you're not paying me to come and be Martin Luther King at work. Like, that's not my job description. So for me, those kind of things you look at as before you start, to kind of say, okay, what kind of organization is this? does it kind of align with where I'm going? Does it align with what I'm trying to do in terms of my personality? Do they look like the kind of organization I want to work for? Right. Because I think that's very important, because otherwise you will we can have a long conversation about some of the personal experiences I've had in some of these organizations where you kind of go in there and it's just a lot. Let's just put it that way. So that's before. And then when you then get in, I think when you get in the door, I think Eduvie mentioned something that's very important. I think you can, once you're in the door, focus on being excellent at your job. I think there's no substitute for being excellent at your job. Whether you're the only one in there, or whether you're one of 300, or whether you're like 20, or like whether there's like 300 of you, or whether you are the only one, focus on being excellent at your job, because that gives you a lot of leverage, right? And because it means whatever situation, it makes it easier for you to have certain conversations. It makes it easier for them to consider other people like yourself that may be coming behind you. Because if you're, let's say for example, you are the only one in the organization, because that's the norm. PR industry in the UK is 92% white. So let's just address that head on. It's 92% white, and there isn't like a long history of a lot of diversity in the industry. So if you are going to a lot of these spaces, you probably be the first or one of the first few people that look like you or sound like you that they will be recruiting. So the way you perform will sort of influence their decision on whether or not they want more people like you or not. So when you go into the door, make sure you perform, like make sure you will deal with madness. That's just that. Like, but madness is not unique to UK context. Madness is universal, it's global. So you deal with madness, right? But what you need to make sure that you prioritize is that you're excellent at your job, because that's the best defense against anything. And then if you're in a situation that you feel like you're not getting the opportunities that you deserve, like have enough, like I always encourage people, don't be afraid to start looking for other options. Like go where you're valued, go where people respect you, respect what you bring to the table, go where you have opportunities to grow, go where opportunities to do things you're really interested in. There's no point in you sort of just for the sake of, oh, I don't know what's around the corner. What's around the corner, who knows? But what you like, also, I'm gonna say quit your job and go, because I know people have responsibilities and stuff like that. But don't be afraid to explore opportunities for better, because I've worked with other people over time who allowed themselves to be trapped in jobs that were killing them and not giving them the opportunities they deserved, but they stayed there because of this, oh, at least I have a job. It's great to have a job, don't get me wrong, it's fantastic, and don't ever give up your job. In like a bird in hand is better than two in the bush, as they say. But at the same time, if you feel like you're in a place where you're not getting opportunities you want for yourself, don't be afraid to look up and be like, actually, is there something else that I can do, like that aligns with what I want for myself?
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Again, and it also speaks to confidence, not settling. And I know for a lot of people, there are many considerations, like sponsorship, bills, and all of that, but there probably is better if you feel like this place or this organization is not the best fit. So on the part of the professionals, you still have to do your research, know the organization, make sure that it's a place where you'll be valued, and then you go in and actually add value as well to that organization. Thank you so much for sharing that. So everyone, we have a few minutes to go. Some people have sent questions. If you would like to make a contribution very briefly, you can raise your hand or you can drop it in the chat. I see Joy saying that this discussion is interesting and it's an eye-opener. I'm very, very happy about that. So I'm going to just take the final questions because our speakers are very busy if I don't see any more questions in my DMs. And Eduvie, so we've said a lot today, and I'm happy that we'll have the chance in June to speak more about some of these things during the events that we're having at the Comms Avenue. I'll talk more on those. But Eduvie, I would like you to share some practical tips. People really want clarity. They just want all the tips they can get to help them to build a successful career in the UK. So what tips from your journey? And you've done amazingly well Even though, yes, you went through your organization, but you've been very proactive, you've been very intentional, and we have been seeing the results of that. So I would like you to please share some practical tips that can help people here to build that successful career.
Yeah, thanks, Victory. I think that sometimes we overcomplicate things. We're thinking, what are the 10 steps to success? Wake up in the morning, drink water. I don't do anything different. What I do is, if you give me something to do, what I keep saying is, it needs to reflect that I have seen it. It needs to reflect that Eduvie has touched this particular piece. And if it takes me longer to do it, I spend sometimes, I work all through the night to get something to the level that I want it to be. And I know we've said a lot today about be your best, put in the effort and all of that. And some of you will be there thinking, now, wow, there's a lot one has to do to really succeed. But I think it's more about working in a way that you can satisfy your conscience. When you leave this thing, if they say, Eduvie worked on it, will you be proud of it or not? I think that's where we need to look at it from, and we need to look at things from an angle of the outcome versus what it takes to get there, and think about it from an angle of, my husband and I always say this, that every little action causes, even like you have no idea what your inaction has cost in a chain of events. The fact that you forgot to move the chair, you were too lazy to move the chair to the other side, may mean that someone comes and sleeps on that chair as a result. So little things, tiny little things, they all add up. All I do is I try as much as possible to give my very best to what is in front of me. You don't understand what I'm saying. When I started my career, I was a contact center consultant. I was in the global graduates. And at the end of the year, I reflect on all of the things I want to be. And then I reflect on all of the opportunities. And then in some instances, I reach out to these people. So I am going to be hosting the Institute of International Communications Festival in June. I reached out to them since last year. I said to them that, well, I love to host events and I would love to host your festival. They hadn't even thought about a theme then. They hadn't thought about what they wanted to do then. And I said, well, this is who I am and this is stuff that I do if you're ever interested. And they never got back to me until, well, like 3 months into 2024. And they were like, would you like to host the events this year? And that was how I got that. So I always say, if you don't ask, you don't get, and you have to be intentional. I intentionally reached out to them because I said to myself, this year, I want to speak on these number of stages because I want to share my story to a wider audience. And this is how I'm going to do it through international festivals. Boom, boom, boom. When are they having the festivals? These dates. I booked my leave dates for those dates. All of this I did since last year. So everything that you see that I announce has been planned since last year. Some of them I already know are happening, but I'm on embargo to announce them until closer to the time. So you have to be very, very intentional about what you want and then plan it and then activate that way. So that has been my own journey.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that, Eduvie. I hope everyone, you're taking notes and learning. I'm going to take one final question before we wrap up, and I'll direct the question to you, Phoebe, because the person is asking about remote work in the UK, how to get remote working opportunities. So if you can just touch on that for a few minutes, what tips you will give to the person?
Yeah. So I think when the first thing is to get here, and then I think Eduvie mentioned something. Just know what you want, have a plan. So once you have a plan, I think getting a remote work here is not that difficult. There are a lot of agencies, there are a lot of companies that are actually doing remote working. So if you know what you want, you come in, you know that, okay, as I speak to you now, I'm working from home today. So this week I was supposed to go to work on Tuesday and Thursday. So it's a hybrid work. But I didn't go to work today because a lot of people are not coming in today. So if I go, it will be just me. And because of this program too, so I decided to just work from home. So when you come in here and you know what you want, I mean, the opportunities are there, you apply, you look at what you want, and it's very well laid out. So there are a lot of job platforms like Indeed, like Read, like Total Jobs, that when you go there, just put in your details, your CV, you register, and then it gives you the option to select the kind of work you want to do. If it's remote work, if it's on-site, if it's hybrid work, you have it all. So you just select what you want, and then you get that offer if you are qualified for it. So I think, yeah, that's what I'll say about it. And the trends are also changing when it comes to the working environment. So a lot of companies are gearing towards remote working, and some companies are even gearing towards working 4 days a week. And I think it's a good thing that is happening now. So it depends on the kind of plan you have. So if you want to work remotely, the opportunities are there. Once you are qualified for it, you put your feet forward, you get it.
Thank you so much, Phoebe. And really, please, in the chat section, if you can just give a big and huge round of applause to our speakers. We have 5 minutes because they are very, very busy, but thank you so much for your time. And like we already said, there's so much to unpack and talk about. And I'm glad that this is just the beginning of a series of conversations that we're looking to have in order to support African comms professionals who are based in the UK. So on the screen, you will see 2 events that we're having this June, which we would like to invite you for. We have a mentorship event with Meta, which is coming up on Thursday, the 6th of June. And essentially, it's networking, it's mentorship, it's also learning from the EMEA comms team at Meta. Please, if you're going to be free from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., you can register. The links will be posted in the chat by someone in the team. Leslie Jolie, you can help with that. And then we also have the UK Hangout. So we do these hangouts across the continent. They're a good place to network, to just learn from the experiences of professionals that have gone ahead, they've succeeded like we've done today, but then you get to meet them in person. So we're going to be having Elsie Ofuluwe, who is the Vice President and Head of EMEA Internal Comms at Morgan Stanley. We're having Emmanuel Ofuso-Appiah, who works in the Financial Services Department of Edelman Smithfield. We have Honori Exepie, who works in UBA UK. Phoebe mentioned that she worked in UBA Ghana. And then we also have just of Wimbat. So that's the links there to sign up. We hope to see you in June. And if you have more questions about your transition, getting a job, all of these things, please feel free to send us an email. If the speakers don't mind, you can also please post your handle, LinkedIn, in the chat so that anyone that wants to connect with you, they can do so afterwards. And we hope to continue this conversation. I like what Paulina has put there. Paulina, I was going to call you, but I said, I won't put you on the spot. She says, for everyone who has just started out here, don't be afraid to start small, speak up, and connect with people in your area of interest. Finally, do not take rejection personally. It will all work out. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's a very, very good way to wrap up. Don't take the rejection personally. I don't believe in accumulating all the rejections. Some people do it, but don't allow anything that will make you feel like, oh, this is impossible. It's not impossible. It can be done. You can break in, you can have a thriving career that makes you feel fulfilled and, achieve all the goals that you have. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I look forward to meeting as many of you as possible in either of these events in June, and we'll also be having subsequent webinars to address specific issues with regards to recruitment, with regards to making sure you have the right experience and all that good stuff. Thank you so much.
So I'm sorry, I just wanted to add just a point to what Eduvie said. So I think one of the things we also need to do is to optimize our LinkedIn page. Optimization of your LinkedIn page also gives you the opportunity for employers to also see your profile and also search when they search for anything comms or PR, your profile will come up. So it's a very good opportunity, and I think we should take advantage of that. Thank you.
Thank you for adding that, Phoebe, because that's really, really important. And we're planning to also have a section that will really focus on making sure that your profile, your CV, and all the things that you're using to apply for jobs is as best as it can possibly be. So thank you again, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon/evening, depending on where you are in the world. Bye.